your host, Mark Harris, with my co-host, Colton Dodgson. First episode of the new year, 10 days in. We decided to take an extra long holiday break. Colton, how was your break before we get into the nuts and bolts of ASU athletics?
It was good, man. For a while, I didn't think you were going to approve my PTO for the second week. So I'm glad that you ultimately did that. That was nice. I didn't want to have to go to HR, but we avoided all of that, which is good. Nice long break. Saw some good ASU basketball, which is fun. I don't know if we necessarily expected that the last time we recorded. I will also say I don't think either of us expected my 9 conference game winning streak hypothetical to be 45% of the way there, roughly. So we have that, which is cool. I didn't expect to be in that position getting on the show today.
Yeah, that's a good way to kind of bring us into this. I was gonna open it by saying, let's talk about the sports news of the day. The joke being that ASU plays at Washington tonight, being like, oh, that's the sports news of the day, because yesterday being Wednesday, which is the day we're recording it, obviously yeah. Pete Carroll and Nick Saban both retired. So
that's
big. Hey, maybe.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to steal your segue.
It's fine. It's fine. Heck, maybe we'll have another podcast soon of if Dan Lanning leaves for the Alabama job, then they hire Dillingham or something. I don't see that happening at all, but
yeah, a lot of dominoes randomly got to fall now. Coaching carousel in the NFL is going to be insane, and now it's shaping up to be a pretty significant coaching offseason in college.
Too. Yeah, because it just took Saban, and then that's gonna more dominoes.
Other places, yep, for sure.
Yeah. Well, ASU basketball is not affected by that, and I don't think anyone's banging down Bobby Hurley's door to hire him at this point. But maybe that'll change if they keep up their winning ways. They are first place in the Pac-12 men's basketball standings with a 4-0 conference record, 10-5 overall, if I have that correct. Yes, 10-5 overall, 4-0 in the conference. Have a chance to get to 5-0 tonight when they play Washington in Seattle. I'll just get this started. I mean, our last show was like 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. We did not see this coming at all. We didn't.
No,
I didn't.
No, I didn't either. My statement was very. It was more of a Bobby Hurley has been known to do. It's been a very streaky team under Bobby Hurley. So I was just kind of throwing out that hypothetical of like that would be so kind of apropos for Bobby Hurley's tenure. And we're in the midst of something right now, and it happened immediately after we last recorded, which is strange, but it is a fun stretch, and we'll ride it out until it's done.
For sure. Well, and let's kind of rewind back to where we were. We had recorded their most recent game before our most previous episode. The game they played before our most recent episode, that's a better way to say it, was the Northwestern game, which was a disaster. I mean, one of the worst ASU basketball games I've ever seen, if not the worst. It was a disaster. It was terrible. And I don't care, who you are as an ASU fan, like it was very, very reasonable and acceptable to have huge questions and concerns about the team and the program and like everything after that game, because it just looked like sure, they could win a few games in conference, but after seeing that, the nosedive was very real possibility, And honestly, I didn't really have a big change in opinion after the Bay Area series,
No,
because those were not impressive. Like those were impressive wins in the sense that like winning on the road is hard, and you need to win all your games, all that. But like from like a quality of play standpoint, I didn't leave those games, when they had to come back against Cal and they barely beat Stanford. I wasn't like, oh, ASU basketball has it turned around, because
Well, yeah,
they
and I'm
didn't look
pretty
that
sure
much better.
Stanford was one of those games too where they needed a late surge to
Yeah.
escape with that one. They were both kind of like stolen wins a little bit. But I mean, those two home games against the other two four corner
Yeah.
schools or two of the other four corner schools were pretty significant. I was at the Utah game. I know you were at Colorado,
Yep.
but I watched Colorado, and it's so tough, and it's always tough to evaluate ASU basketball because there's just so much variance from game to game in terms of the team that shows up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen such a colossal turnaround, and the only reason that this gives me that I have a little bit of hope, not that they'll, you know, lose two conference games and get a bye in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament, whatever. But the only reason that I think they've turned a corner from that valley that they were in that 3-game losing streak is that return of Adam Miller. He has been so good for the offensive side of the ball and getting him back and getting him in the groove, and even the defensive side. The defensive side has been so impressive, but getting him acclimated with this new team. And there's always that learning curve when you're bringing in the amount of transfers that you do. Obviously, Jemiah Neal, Frankie Collins,
Jose.
yeah, or Alonzo
Beast.
Gaffney. Those guys are returning, but exactly, you've got Jose coming in and getting Adam Miller acclimated. Sean Phillips was out for a while. So getting all those guys comfortable was tough in such a short amount of time. I think Jose transferred like 2 weeks before the season started.
Yeah.
So a bit of a learning curve was to be expected. It looked pretty bad, but now with Adam Miller back in the fold, they seem to be turning a corner, and that corner, it looks like it's being turned because of their defensive intensity. And we always talk about Bobby Hurley doesn't really have an offensive scheme other than if you play hard on defense, shoot whatever you want to shoot, right? Like that's kind of what we've always discussed in terms of what he tells his players on offense or what the understanding seems to be. But
I mean, that's a simplistic way of putting it, but when you watch the games, it does look like that. It's
it
like,
feels
yeah,
like that from a fan's perspective.
right,
It's like,
yeah,
yeah, if you're playing hard on the defensive side of the ball, there's a little bit more margin for error in
yep,
terms of you freelancing on the offensive side, which doesn't always work out, right? Especially when this team gets cold, which we've seen happen quite a bit in the past, shooting the ball. Again, different team, but yeah, I mean, the defense has been what has really impressed me. Primarily Frankie Collins and his intensity. Obviously, the steal numbers are
he's so good. Yeah, he's been so good this year. Even in
yeah,
some of their really bad games, like he's been good.
definitely. And like those steal numbers and the defensive performance that these teams have put forth, or this team's put forth,
3.1 steals per game.
that's
That's
absurd.
yeah.
I think he had like 10 or 11 total in the last two, something like that. I want to say he had 5 against one of those two schools. I can pull up the box score, but either way, the steal numbers have been absurd. And it's not just him. And granted, Colorado was missing one of their best players too,
Hey,
but
whatever, man.
uh,
Colorado's a good team. Like
they're a good team. They're
seeing them
deep.
live, Lampkin's a big force in the middle. I mean, Tristan De
It's
Silva's been in
over,
Colorado for like it feels like 6 years, and he's
and he
always
played
been
well.
good. He's just a
He played
smooth
well.
player. Hit some huge
KJ
shots against
Simpson,
ASU, and KJ Simpson's really good too. So whatever.
yeah.
Like we've missed players. But yeah.
No,
Anyway,
I 100%. It's not to belittle that win at all. Just needs to be mentioned.
of
The
course.
Simpson and De Silva both played extremely well in that game. So it wasn't like it looked like Colorado was missing something necessarily at all. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to pull up this box score. Either way, it's been a great stretch. We'll see how it goes. They've got UW tomorrow night at 11, which is
It's at 9.
great. It's at 9. Why?
I don't know why.
Maybe
Where'd you get 11?
maybe my computer's on Eastern time.
Yeah,
or
I'd say
something.
9.
I don't know because it said 11, but 9 is way better. I was kind of
9's still pretty
blown away.
freaking late too, but
Yeah, I mean, I was blown away by 11, but that's probably Eastern time, which is
yeah.
why nobody really watches this team. So on the East Coast. But yeah,
Absolutely. And your point with Miller, I mean, I didn't like when ASU was playing very badly, and I was like, okay, like sure, like having Miller would be great, but does he really make that big of a difference? The answer is yes. Okay.
mhm.
In their, weekend sweep of the mountain schools, 13 points against Utah, 18 points against Colorado, 31 points over the weekend. I mean, that's huge. And the one thing I really noticed with him is when he shoots a three, there's no hesitation. It's just shoot, And sometimes a lot of times with ASU basketball players or just basketball in general, like see guys hesitate to shoot and then they do shoot and it doesn't go in, of course, and it's just a wasted possession essentially. Miller shoots it, not going to make everyone obviously, but like you see like it's a really smooth looking form. And you can see why he was so like highly sought after in the past. So it's been a huge addition. Just having Sean Phillips back too. He didn't really play that. You were at the Colorado, I mean at the Utah games. You could speak about him better than me. But in the Colorado game, he didn't play too much, but it's still a great player to have on your team. It's Colton. So we mentioned Frankie Collins. Where do you think his 3.1 steals per game ranks among all D1 college basketball players?
I mean, it's got to be top 5, maybe top 3. I'm gonna say he's second or third.
Wow, he's number 3. Yep,
Okay.
3.1 per game. Some guy on Florida International has 4.12 steals per game. That's crazy. But
That's crazy.
it's
Yeah.
that's so big. And Frankie has been, like I said, he's been so consistent. Um, I'm forgetting which of the Bay Area games it was. I think it was against Stanford. He hit a huge shot late in the game that gave ASU the lead. Uh, but I mean, he's just been so big as one of the few constants from last year. And it was really nice to see Jemiah Neal get going, at least against Colorado. I mean, when he attacks the basket, man, like it feels like no one can stop him when he attacks the basket. Even if like they're playing good defense and their arms are like in the way or whatever, like it just feels like he has enough juice to like hang in the air that extra half second longer to like move the ball in a certain way so he can get a decent shot. Like
Right. And when you're attacking the rim like that, and when you have a guy who's a genuine threat to attack the rim,
yes.
it opens everything else up around the perimeter and the dribble drive, whatever else, right? So I think as he continues to do that, and as they continue to get a feel for, new guys on the court, and it seems like they are with Adam Miller and Jose Perez, who both have played extremely well. And he talked about it. The big thing is there's no hesitation, right? They're committing,
Yep.
and they're going to live with the result. There's no like second guessing what they're doing, and Jemiah Neal, the more that he gets comfortable attacking that lane like he's been doing, the kickouts are going to be there. It's putting more stress on the defense, which is imperative. And I did misspeak earlier. I said Frankie Collins. I thought I heard he had like 10 steals over 2 games. Maybe it was over 3, but he had 3 steals in both the Colorado and the Utah game, which is
Still,
still
yeah.
yeah, that's a ton. So whatever they're doing on defense, the intensity has been incredible, and that's opened up obviously transition looks and other things like that, which has continued to put stress on opposing defenses, which maybe they haven't always done in the past, right? It seems like defenses have been able to settle in a little bit, or ASU just shoots themselves out of games, and neither is really happening over the course of the last 4 games, which is great.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, the other, yeah, I mean, Perez has just been he's just been so reliable this year. And like with him,
He's
it's
steady.
for
He's
one,
steady.
for one, he's the person I trust the most out of any of these guys on this team to hit like 2 free throws in a row. If he gets fouled while he's shooting. I trust him to get the 2 points more than honestly any of these. Like until I see it on a more consistent basis from some of these guys, I'm trusting Jose Perez to make the 2 free throws. So yeah, that and the thing is that we're not like that. Like Colorado and Utah are good. You know, they both entered, I think, with 11 wins each. Colorado's now 11-4. I don't know what. I'll have to check Utah, but they're both probably going to be tournament teams. You know, like because they had the did well in the non-con, and so those are 2 really big wins. And it's also very encouraging that ASU clearly played its best basketball of the season in those games. I mean, the Utah game, first and foremost, they won by 12 points. But I mean, against Colorado, I can't really say that like they played badly. Like, I mean, obviously they won, but like there have been ASU games where, yeah, they win, but it's like, man, like it just looked very uneven the whole time. And there wasn't any flow to the game. And you kind of just relied on guys hitting shots like the SMU game earlier in the non-conference. Like that wasn't like a well-played game by ASU. It was just kind of, they hit enough threes early on in the game and then they went on a run late. You know, they all count the same, but those were just 2 like from beginning to end cohesive games. There was flow. There was guys getting good shots, like attacking the basket. And maybe some of it is just having Phillips and Miller in the lineup, you know?
Definitely. And you know what's encouraging about this game too is um late or kind of midway through the first half, going into the latter part of the first half of this game, Colorado actually takes the lead and
Yeah.
starts to put some cushion, right? They're up 29-24, which in the past, a lead like that, ASU starts forcing things. Colorado is able to continue to build that lead. And obviously, the Cal and Stanford games aside, teams are typically able to keep ASU at arm's length a little bit, especially good teams like Colorado, right? So when that happens, you're kind of like, oh, okay, we'll see how they respond. And they respond by taking over the game essentially for a period of time, right? They go up 41 to 33 by almost the end of the first half, 139 left in the first half. So that response was really encouraging to me. I remember that standing out, seeing Colorado start to put some space between them and ASU. Now, if that happens on the road, is this a different story? Obviously, playing in the Bay Area, they ran both of those games back on the road. But maybe in a more hostile environment, maybe when they're at Oregon, a place like that, does that come into play a little more? That's something to keep an eye on. But I mean, the first test was encouraging, seeing them kind of build that lead up a little bit after being down.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's going to be much harder to come back, obviously, like on the road and tougher environments if you're, down by 8 points in any point in the game.
Right.
But that's why it's important to win these games. That's why it's important to build up some buffer in the conference standings at least. And
Definitely.
like I don't think ASU will win three more conference games in a row, but I could very well see them being at 6-1 because you're at Washington. Washington's a good team, but you can win that game. It's not an impossible game to win with how you've been playing. And then you host the LA schools, which looked a lot tougher on paper before the season began. But I'm looking at the conference. I'm looking at the standings. USC's 2-2 in conference, 8-7 overall. So they had a bad non-con too. Like they left non-con 6-5 just like we did. But the difference is they've gone 2-2 in conference and they haven't made up for it as well. And then UCLA, 6-9 overall, 1-3 in conference. They lost to Cal. Like that's really bad. So there's a real opportunity for you. I mean, there's an opportunity for you to go 7-0, obviously, but that's a lot to ask. There's a real opportunity for you to go 6-1.
100%.
And
yeah,
if you get to 6-1, so you would go 2-1, that you'd be 12-6 overall, but that still puts you in a pretty good spot, Um, and I think I wasn't talking about this with, I think I was talking about it with Connor and our friend Tonus. I like that you have Arizona games later in the season. Um, just because as ASU fans, we've seen some pretty good ASU teams start out, and then you get humbled by Arizona early on in the conference season, and it kind of pops the air out of the balloon. But if you're going to have that, might as well have it later in the year once you've built up some wins, once you've gelled together as a team more.
Right.
Uh, and, maybe, I mean, it's not like they're some unbeatable team. They lost to Stanford. They're definitely the best team in the conference, but hey, on a given night, maybe a 3/4 court shot goes in and you beat him, you know?
It happens.
Yeah, or
It
happened
happens.
at least once.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely. I think the upcoming slate is favorable, right? Um, variance happens, letdowns happen, but
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. 6-1 seems very attainable. Um, I would think 5-2 going into the Oregon and Oregon State game would be a little disappointing. But if
It
we're,
would it would be at this point, given
yeah,
who you're playing. And look, like the non-conference
there's two
results
games
still
at
count,
home too.
you know?
Yeah, you got two games at home too.
Yeah.
Um,
And
you
and those
want
will
to,
be people will be like those will be really well attended games for Wells Fargo standards because one, it's UCLA and it's the last time UCLA is coming there, or at least for a while. And then the other is USC, and you got Bronny and the guy Isaiah Collier as well. So like even though neither of those teams are very good, they have the brand recognition in UCLA's case, or they have the star power in USC's case. So
right, those
that's
tickets.
enough.
I'm looking. It'll show you like the cheapest ticket price while you're kind of like scrolling through or whatever. And the cheapest ticket, at least on CBS, whatever they use to show ticket prices,
Right.
cheapest ticket for USC is $38. Um,
What?
yeah,
Wow.
at least on this, I don't know what it. I'm sure
I'm
you
sure
can find it
people will
here
be able to.
somewhere else, but I mean, cheapest for context, cheapest for Washington is 2, cheapest for UCLA is 7,
Interesting.
cheapest for Oregon is 8.
Okay.
So yeah, you got
Yeah,
that $38 number might be what, the Bronny effect? I don't know,
it
but
has to be. It has to be. I mean, look, when Bronny went to UCLA or gosh, USC, as a season ticket holder, I was like, oh, I guess I can go see Bronny, like
yeah,
it's an added thing. It's like, oh, okay, like at least he's doing this and, before USC goes to the Big Ten, how it worked out with his age and all that. But no, that's going to be really interesting. And then if you can beat him, then that's awesome too. So
yeah, people will be watching.
yeah, it's still kind of weird that ASU basketball is in this spot right now. Just given like again, like the non-conference losses still are part of the season, and they they looked really bad, like they just did, and um, I didn't think they would be able to break out of it in the way that they have particularly
100%.
in this past weekend.
I completely agree. And the losses have been bad, right? Like the margins have been
Bad, yeah,
brutal. I mean, the San Diego game was a 5-point loss, but I mean, you got a 20-point loss to TCU. You got the 19 points to Northwestern. Whatever. I'm trying to do the math quickly. 28 to
yeah,
BYU.
that was a
I mean, I kind of throw the Mississippi State game out a little bit, just given all of the moving parts. I mean, it counts on the record, but that was kind of to be expected, especially against a good team
yeah.
with so many new guys. But either way, these losses have been brutal. Um, which I mean, in Stanford and Cal could have gotten away from them too, right? They weren't. It wasn't like
Yeah.
those were wire to wire games. So
Oh,
there's not I
They were
mean,
not fun to watch at all. Like at the end, you're like,
yeah,
oh, thank God we won. But like,
yeah. I think the encouraging thing is their defense has played incredible. How much of that is like, um, being at home and being hyped by being at home, and that gives you the intensity. Whatever. We'll see how that travels. I'm sure it'll be. I will get a good um, sort of idea when they play Washington tomorrow, and they're just going to continue to get
tonight,
more comfortable.
technically, because I'm
Or
gonna.
yeah, because this comes
Yeah.
out tomorrow, so they're going to continue to get more comfortable with each other, right? And I think that's the most encouraging part. Is that's what Bobby Hurley has done an effective job at in this transfer portal era, is bringing these teams together and making them comfortable with each other as the season progresses. And that's what we saw happen at the end of last year, right? They needed a little bit of a run just to get into that bubble conversation, and they ultimately did, and they made, they won that first 4 game and actually got into the tournament. So we'll see what happens, but that's the encouraging part for me, is it looks like this group is not only talented, but they're starting to gel a little bit together
Mhm.
and starting to show that they have that defensive intensity.
Yeah, totally. And one final thought before we move on to some football transfers. I mean, look, after the Northwestern game, after that stretch of just bad games, like I was really like just about like Hurley. I was like, okay, like are we like we're gonna have a new athletic director coming in, we're moving to the Big 12, like this looks really bad right now. And like I remember tweeting out, like I get that like it's ASU basketball and like all this, but you can't look like that. Like you can't look like the way they did against Northwestern. And he turned it around. Like he has turned it around. And you can just see by the way they played against Utah and Colorado that this is not the same team that was on the floor against Northwestern, even though a lot of the same players, it just is, just much better. And that makes me think that like it's all under control, for a lack of a better phrase. Like I can see the season going on where it's ASU will almost certainly finish with a winning record, right? Um, and even I don't think it's going to be really hard to make the NCAA tournament, just because you just did so bad in the non-con against
Mhm.
Power Five teams. But if honestly, like this year, if they make it to the NIT and are like like a 1 or 2 seed in the NIT bracket, like I'm not going to be thrilled, but because you always want to make the tournament. But it's at least like, okay, like it's at least like a non-disastrous season. You don't want to finish
Honestly,
like,
yeah. At this point, winning the NIT would be sweet. Like, I just want to be able to celebrate something, man.
I
Like,
wouldn't hate winning the NIT. I
yeah,
wouldn't hate
let's
it.
win the NIT. I'm cool with that.
Okay, and if ASU wins the NIT, do they hang a banner?
Do schools typically do that?
I think it depends on how good your school's men's basketball history is.
Okay. Oh
Or if you're
man,
like a mid-major, then if you're a mid-major and you're not like a power, then you
I'm sure
should.
they would. I'm sure they would. It's still winning something, right? Like, you're still playing D1 schools in a
Yeah.
tournament
I
setting, right? To get through that entire tournament and win the entire thing, like, that's still an accomplishment. It's not the
yeah.
big dance, but it's something. Like,
It's something.
yeah,
Hey, when you're at ASU basketball, you gotta take that.
yeah. Hang your hat on something,
I just know that like if you hang an NIT champions banner, like you're gonna get made fun of. You know?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. You will get
But
made fun of, but you know what? That doesn't matter to me. I would still celebrate it extremely hard. I will say
hey,
that.
we're ASU
I will
alum.
buy I will buy an NIT champion shirt and I will wear it with pride.
Ooh, I would rather buy the shirt than have a banner, honestly, but that's just me. Uh, and
Why
hey,
not
you know
both?
what? We're ASU alums, and if you go to ASU, you're used to getting fun of. Paging Aaron Rodgers.
Oh yeah.
I saw
That I
Dillian
wish.
tweet out
What,
like later that day that ASU is a higher ranked academic school and all this. I'm like, I love it. I love the
Yeah.
yeah.
That I didn't realize how little AJ Hawk did on that show until all of that started coming out, and Twitter started to
The
take
AJ
it
Hawk
down.
memes are hilarious.
Yeah, and
Like he could just be on this show right now, just sitting there.
as a co-host myself, it really lit a fire under me. I don't want to be an AJ Hawks, so I'm really trying to pick it up here.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad I don't have to tell you, Colton. No.
Yeah, you don't have to threaten by firing, threatening me with firing. I don't know how to say that. You don't have to threaten to fire me anymore. There we go.
Threatening you with the firing squad. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Something like that. I know
Yeah.
you've thrown that one out there before too.
Yeah.
So
Do some medieval shit. No,
yeah.
so Dillingham tweets on Tuesday. ASU is a top 20 public university in the country, top 40 in US. It is incredible how far ASU has come under at Michael Crow. Hashtag Sun Devil for life, hashtag activate the valley. I love it. I love it, KD. Well, anything more to add to the ASU basketball conversation before we shift gears?
Not necessarily. They're just fun to watch again. I really enjoyed watching that.
That's a good way to like sum up our conversation is just the simple phrase of like, they're just fun to watch again.
Right. Like I really enjoyed watching that Colorado game. I turned them on. I don't just check the score on my phone. Like it's kind of that distinction, right? Like you actually want to sit down and watch them, which is cool.
Yeah, no, and it's a good place to be. And I guess that's kind of why we're like, you know what, if we make the NIT this year, it's not the end of the world. So, yeah. All right. ASU football continues to add transfers. And honestly, like, I did not expect to be here in almost mid-January talking about even more transfers coming.
And like high level guys too.
Yes. Guys that one, you get a 4-star transfer from Oregon in defensive back Cole Martin, who is from Arizona. We'll get into him more later. But you get some other guys like Miles Ghost Rouser, which is a fantastic nickname. You go by Ghost as a defensive back. I'm going to look these. I'm just going to pull these up on my phone. But I believe he had offers from TCU and Oregon State. So again, it's not ASU. He's not picking ASU from Utah State and Florida International and Northern Illinois. It's other schools that are of our level. And like this guy Jeff Clark, defensive tackle from Louisville, just off my memory, he visited North Carolina and Michigan State. So again, like those aren't blue bloods, but they're like those are the that's the level we're trying to be at as ASU, And again, there's even more guys that I'm going to mention. But and another guy, you got a defensive tackle from Arizona, Jacob Rich Kongaika.
Yeah.
Just heading up I-10 from U of A to ASU, which is interesting. I'll say that.
You don't see that very often. See guys transfer from U of A to ASU, so that's and then immediately embrace it too. He seems like he's tweeting out, Sun Devil, I'm home, all that stuff, which has to be pretty unique, right?
We had a good experience at Sun Devil Stadium.
Right. He just had a great experience at Sun Devil Stadium. Yeah. So
okay, this is a I'm glad we got this guy, Jacob Kongaika. I'm pretty sure that I'm pronouncing it. Kongaika. Yeah, that looks right enough. I'm glad he's on the team. All that. I don't like there should be a rule in the transfer portal that you can't transfer to your direct rival, just on principle. And if Noah Fafita transferred here, Tetero McMillan, then maybe I'd change my tune. But it's just like I don't know. This is definitely a boomer take, but it's like, man, like you could have gone like anywhere, you know? I don't know. I don't know. But
Yeah, it's quite the
it's
flip.
the way of the world.
My thing is I would love to hear why, because I think his decision could shine a pretty significant light on the job that Dillingham and his staff are doing, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because if somebody is willing to pick an in-state rival as a transfer destination, especially an in-state rival that you just destroyed at their house, right? Like
Yep.
recently, and you are still willing to commit to that program, there's got to be a pretty good reason why. And that's why I hope, like, I mean, it's a unique story. I'm sure somebody's going to cover it at some point and sit down with him and talk to him about that whole experience and what went into that decision and all that. Maybe they already have and I just missed it. But I think that could shine a very interesting light on the how effective Dillingham and his staff are at pitching this program, right?
That is true.
Um,
That is so true. Yeah.
I think he could have a real unique perspective on that. And position of need, depth on the defensive line is imperative,
Oh,
right?
can't have
So he's
enough.
gonna yeah,
Can't have
him and
enough.
Jeffrey Clark are gonna come in. They'll compete. We also got Roman Petrie, who Roman Petrie stood out to me because he went to high school with Jordan Clark.
Yep. From
And
Purdue.
Jordan Clark is the one who vouched for ASU and ultimately played a role in Roman Petrie committing here, right? Edge
Yes.
rusher, 3-star guy out of high school. He can help too. It's just like you see the names, you never really look at the schools they're coming from in too much depth, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, this guy came from, wherever, Louisville, Purdue, Oregon with Cole Martin, whatever it
Right.
is. I mean, U of A, that kind of jumps out at you. There's so much in this transfer class that is unique to me. The in-state guys, the poly pipeline that's going on, right? All of that stuff that's being talked about. Um, Rayleigh Brown, it's just such a unique class, and it's all over the place too, right? You've got the offensive lineman, you've got a long snapper, you've got defensive guys, you've got a kicker. They're just covering all of
Yeah.
their bases. Um, and 22 transfers with not only that, but the commits that they have, the high school guys that are coming in with, I mean, Jaden Fortier has the ACL. We'll see where he's at by the time fall or spring ball. Obviously, he will probably won't play in spring ball, but when the season comes around, Jason Brown, who he's had quite the end
Washington
to
Player of
his
the
high school
Year,
career.
and he was
Right.
in the All American game along with Champ Westbrooks this past weekend.
100%, man. Like there's a lot to be excited about right now. Terrell Kim,
Yeah.
offensive lineman, 3-star out of Oregon, right? I think in Saluani out of Hawaii, you can go down the list. Last year we talked about it all the time after when we come on after games, and it's just like the O line is decimated. They can't really do anything. Whoever's back there at quarterback is at such a disadvantage because you can't really nobody's
Yeah.
upright. That whatever we said on a week to week basis, and now you're bringing in Champ Westbrook, Samisi Tonga, Khalifa Saluni, Terrell Kim, all of these guys, right? With all of the transfers, there's going to be what 6, 7 new faces in this line room, which is
Yeah.
like that's exactly what you needed, man. So,
Yeah.
stacking both of the lines in terms of emphasizing transfers and recruits, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to see what Dillingham does with all of these guys and what happens moving forward. Like this for his first full cycle of transfers and recruiting, it's so impressive, and it continues to happen. Like you continue to see guys committing. Um, so I don't know, man. It's exciting stuff, and I want to see what it looks like on the field come September.
Absolutely, man. And like I want to touch on a few things you mentioned. You mentioned with Roman Petrie how he had the connection with Jordan Clark and how Clark probably vouched for Dillingham. That's why it is so important and so critical that Dillingham isn't like being a dick to these guys on the way out, or not even being like not like he's helping them find a good spot on the way out. It's more than just like what
He's
are you
being
going to do? What
supportive,
you're going to do? What?
right? Like
Yeah.
supportive. That's yeah,
Yes, that yeah, exactly. And like Dillingham knows that it's not necessarily about this one player. It's about building like a place where people want to come to. And this is the way of the world. We call it like if you're gonna be an a-hole college football coach, and like look, I defend the tenure of Todd Graham, but he was an a-hole college football coach, and like there's a reason why he's not doing college football anymore. Like you can defend the 2013 and 14 seasons for Todd Graham and say like this is where ASU should be, this is what they should be striving to get to, and also acknowledge he's an asshole. Like he just like he just was. And a guy
he
like
had
that would not be like treating guys well on the way out if they decided to transfer, most likely. And anyway,
for
but
sure. It is a different era.
yeah,
That's an
that is true.
interesting comparison to bring up because like I wonder how Todd Graham would have responded in this era.
He
Because
would have like
he definitely had his style, right?
it would have
He
been
had
through
his
gritted
style.
teeth. Like it wouldn't have been natural. You know what I'm saying? Like
Exactly.
with
It would have
Dillingham,
been
it doesn't feel like an act when he's like, "Oh, I'm so happy this person is hiding." Like I'm so happy for Jalen Conyers or heading to Texas Tech or whatever it may be. Like it's
yeah.
not as it doesn't feel like I'm sure like he would rather Jalen Conyers and BJ Green be back, but
But he
uh
knows them. Like he got to
yeah,
know them. Like he cares about them. And I think that's what
yep,
stands out. I also think that's why having a young coach who has kind of, you know, found their footing in this digital transfer
yep,
portal era
yep,
is
yep,
it's not a detriment, it's an advantage, right? You might see the learning curve on the field or whatever, right? We talked about, oh, last year, whatever we discussed after games and things like that. He's an effective coach, right? And he's going to continue to grow into that. But
yeah,
I think he's showing us right now that he does an incredible job at this side of everything, right?
yes,
And
yes.
this side is imperative. You cannot
It's
be
more important. Yeah,
exactly. You cannot be an effective coach if you don't have the personnel to run your schemes. And to be an effective coach, you have to show these guys that you care about them. And that's what he's done, right? And he's building that reputation, a reputation that he's probably already got from his time at, FSU and Oregon and all the other places, the high
Auburn. Yeah,
profile places that he worked. But I mean, it's showing up right now, and it blows me away because I'm not used to seeing this. I'm not used to seeing, former 4-star guys and recruits that have options to go to UNC and Oregon picking ASU. Like it
yeah,
just it's been crazy. And in the Washington Player of the Year coming to ASU, right? Like
right. Yeah,
it's all just been so surreal. So I mean, if this is what we're gonna get out of Dillingham, and this is the starting point, this is his first full cycle. I don't know how ASU isn't competitive in the Big 12 sooner rather than later. And that's exciting in an era of an
yeah.
18 playoff.
12 team, but yeah,
Or is
um,
it 12?
it's 12.
You're right, because
Yeah.
the four teams get a bye.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So a 12-team playoff, right? Which is conference winners are auto bids, right?
I believe so.
So
If and when if ASU wins the Big 12 at some point, they would be automatically in. So yeah.
exactly, which that's so exciting. It probably won't happen next year. Like
No, no, no.
let's not get ahead of
2025
ourselves.
though,
It's
that's
not,
the year. That's the year you got to be focusing on.
and
But
I mean, you'll have these young guys in here with a year of experience, um, hit the transfer portal hard again, go out and show that you can take these guys and translate all of this personality and all of this this welcoming demeanor to results. And guys are going to see like that's the best of both worlds. I got a coach who cares about me, is going to shoot me straight, right? Like he did with Jaden Rashada, which is probably why Rashada didn't. I'm not assuming he would have transferred, but we've seen that happen before. Dillingham was transparent, and I think that's important. Being honest with people, being transparent with people, letting people know what's going on, and if he builds that reputation, man, I'm so excited. I'm excited about this team.
For sure. And like and like him being at big time schools like Oregon, Auburn, FSU, he's seen what like those rosters look like. And that's why it's so key that recent guys they've added, defensive lineman Jacob Kongaika, defensive lineman Jeffrey Clark, offensive tackle Josh Atkins, edge Roman Petrie, interior own line Shanko Matuita. I'm not pronouncing that right. Matatia, yeah. I think that's it. Joey Sua, just a lot of just large bodies that they need. And then you add, linebacker Keyshawn Elliott, the safety Miles Rouser, both the guys from New Mexico State, a 10-win New Mexico State team too. It's not like that was a bad team.
Zaires Viasu too. I think he was defensive MVP at San Diego State.
Yep.
So
you're adding sure, you're not adding the highest end players in the portal, but you've got 22 guys in. Yeah, 22. That is so important. That is so important because last year, especially at the end of last year, you could really see they don't have enough guys to compete at the Power X level, once a few guys got injured, then it really that's why you get blown out by Utah, because Jacob Conover has to play a lot. That's why you're getting blown out by Oregon. Maybe you get blown out by Oregon anyway, but you get blown out by Arizona. You have these results, and I think it's and then you look earlier in the season, you're playing 50-50 games, and really other than Fresno State, that's a weird game. But after the bye, you almost beat Washington. It's when the team's healthy or close to healthy, it's it looks a lot better,
100%, which is, dude, 100% why they went out. Yeah. And now you have depth at every position.
Yes.
And not just bodies, but guys who can play at every position. And you're going to have competition. You're going to have, which, I mean, you don't always get competition in college football, especially when guys can transfer immediately, right?
Yeah.
So getting that competition, the fact that we're going to get Levitt and Rashada and Bourguet all competing, that's a great quarterback room, man. Maybe one that I'm excited about, at least. So, I mean,
and they're all like you mentioned, they're all coming in with the same no BS. It's hey, this is an open job, So
100%. Right. And also for Rashada and Bourguet, if Levitt comes in and wins this job, understanding hey, my opportunity could come up next week, right? And preparing the start of every week, because they've both been through that. They both saw it happen all season. They were down to their fourth quarterback last year. I'm not saying Levitt is obviously, if he's the guy who wins the job, you don't want to see him get hurt, right? But just from the realistic perspective of this is football, that stuff happens. Just because you don't win the job out of sprint or fall ball or whatever, whenever they make that decision, your time could be the next snap.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's why you mentioned it. The games where they're getting blown out, it's because they don't have not only the bodies, but the quality to compete with these teams deeper on the depth chart, right? And now they have that to an extent, and that is encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, again, no one's saying this team's going to win 10 games next year. The goal is to go 6-6, right, or 7-5, and maybe you do better.
Which is realistic, man. I think that's realistic.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see when the season over-unders come out, where ASU sits in that. Anyway, I wanted to we keep mentioning like ASU beating out other teams for high-level transfers, and I kind of just want to go through just what I can find on Twitter from these guys and see like who we actually beat out. So Miles Ghost Rouser, okay, safety from New Mexico
You really
State.
like that.
Yeah, dude, Ghost. I love that so much.
You got to see if he's selling shirts on his NIL or something. That seems like something that might happen.
Yeah, for sure. So he has a graphic from December 29th. Thank you for these teams reaching out. It's ASU, Oregon State, Utah, Illinois, and Nevada, Arkansas State, and UConn. So, but again, you have like 4 Power 5 programs and then also TCU after. So that's like those are legitimate, decent programs that you beat out. Let's go to Jeff Clark from Louisville, 10-win team last year. I'm going to go through his stats real quick. Well, they're not that actually impressive. So, it says he only played him. Well, I guess only played in 5 games last year. I mean, he was a defensive tackle, so
those guys don't show up on the. That's why box scores are tough for defense because those guys don't always show up. Everybody wants to look at like sacks and tackles and all of that, but I mean, if you have a defensive tackle that can do their job and do their job effectively, you're going to see it on everybody else's box score.
Right. Exactly.
So,
and to that point, I'm going to read through his offers/interest. 3 days ago, he's commits to ASU, but before that, amazing time at UNC. They got the photo shoot out there for him. Looks good. Blessed to receive an opportunity from Colorado University. We beat out Coach Prime. Blessed to receive an offer from Duke University. Got ASU. Blessed to receive an offer from Cal. Blessed to receive an offer from Michigan State. And that's it. But again, that gets UNC, Michigan State, Cal, Duke, Colorado. You beat all them out. And again, it's not like you're beating out, Alabama and Georgia for this guy. So I want to be clear, but he was wanted by some other teams that weren't, San Jose State. Cole Martin, 4-star.
He had some options for sure.
I'm just looking at this tweet from Hayes Fawcett. The 5'10", 180-pound defensive back played in all 14 games as a true freshman for the Ducks. 21 tackles, 1 interception, 1 pass breakup. It's pretty good. That's a good spot to be in.
Just the fact that he's starting as a true freshman on that team.
Or playing, rather. But yeah.
Oh, yeah, playing. Getting on the field as a true freshman for that Oregon team, a team that had playoff
hopes, legitimate
scenarios, right? Yeah. Not even hopes. Like they were there for they win that Washington game, they probably cracked the top 4.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Playing in some high stakes games as a freshman, that's going to be experience that is imperative. So
let's go to Jacob Kongaika. So he doesn't show anything either. It's ASU, but again, he played a little bit for U of A last year. Says he had 2 sacks, as a sophomore defensive lineman. You'll take that. Played in looks like he had an injury somewhere. So, but like 8 of their games, 2 sacks, you take that. Roman Petrie, he comes from Purdue. This is not the best, but I just kind of want to illustrate who we were competing with to get these guys, So, so he got, for him, it was Southern University, Mississippi State, Louisiana Tech, University of Houston. So Houston is our conference rival now, and Mississippi State, SEC school. So you beat both of them out for him. Parker Lewis, the kicker, he was at Ohio State. Well, finished his senior day, and now he's going to ASU. Maybe he won't even kick, but it's still good to get a guy like that. And Hawaii offensive tackle Joshua Atkins. Let's see what offers he had.
Real quick, I did just see a tweet, and I don't know.
Oh
It's from
boy.
CFB. Oh, it's from College Football Meme Zone.
Oh.
I don't know how reliable this site is, but the picture posted is like it's like a flight sort of map,
Okay.
with all the specifics of a private jet, like a private charter, and it looks like it is a flight from Eugene, Oregon, to Tuscaloosa for tomorrow morning.
Oh
So,
boy.
if that's true,
That's
and Dan Lanning, I don't know who else would be going from Eugene to Tuscaloosa in a private jet. But if that is true, and again, take that with a grain of salt. It's just a screenshot from CFBMZ. But here, look, this is kind of what it looks like. It's like a. Can you see that? No, that looks bad. It's like a. Can
yeah,
you see
I
that?
can see it. Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
flight map. Yeah.
it's like a flight map with all the specifics of the. It's not just like a plane ticket or something. But I mean, dude, if he's already on a flight,
Well, that could honestly, I don't see Oregon hiring Kenny Dillingham after 1 year. Like, I think they're going to
no,
hire.
they'll go in a different direction if this happens. But man, that would be crazy. He has a $20 million buyout. Not that that matters to Alabama, but
Yeah, that would be that. It'll be interesting to see who ends up. Because just in my personal opinion, I do not want to be the guy who follows Nick Saban at Alabama.
no,
Like,
that's
and
that's
again,
like
I don't have the
impossible for me to
confidence of
do.
like a head coach who's been very successful. Like I get if you get to that level, you think about things differently. But to me, it's just common sense. Do you want to be the guy who follows Nick Saban?
Maybe Lanning just doesn't want to fly from Oregon to the East Coast every 2 weeks with their new Big Ten schedule.
True, that could
So,
be it.
but also what's weird is I saw something the other day where Lanning was talking about how it's just insane to me how the college coaching carousel works, right? Like, and again, this could all just be fake. Like, I don't know how true that is, but he is an option. He is one of their top options, right? We have seen that already come out. Um, but it is crazy how a coach can say, "Yeah, this is like the last job for me. I can't see myself ever leaving this place." And then Nick Saban retires, and there's already rumors of a private jet.
Yeah,
Like it's crazy how it all
that's how it
switches.
is. That's how it
But
is.
that's the landscape of college football for sure.
Yeah. Well, anyway, just to wrap up the transfer portal thing, like, many of these guys probably won't even be good for ASU. Like, we have to acknowledge that. That's just how it is. But
Right.
you're taking good shot. You're adding guys who other teams wanted, and you look like you need more players. And so, like, when you, especially on the lines of scrimmage, like, that's really good to see. And it just, it kind of just ties into what we were talking about, how of like just you just have way more players to work with now. And so that puts you in a much better position moving forward.
100% depth too. Depth is
Yep.
the name of the game, man. At every level too. You've got DBs, you've got linebackers, you've got edge rushers, you've got D tackles, you've got offensive guys. Like it just go through the list. They're all over the place. You've got offensive weapons, man. Like Jason Brown coming in, and we'll see where Fortier is at. But like it's impressive, and it'll be at the very least. I think they'll be much more fun to watch, health willing, this season.
Yeah, for sure. So who knows? Maybe the next time we record, there'll be another transfer that comes in. Honestly, I
Could
did
be,
not.
man. I wouldn't doubt it
Yeah.
with the way that this is all happening.
Well, there was like a flurry of like five of these guys committing all on Sunday. And I was
Yeah.
skiing up at Snowbowl that day, and I didn't even like notice it until like I got back home because my phone died. And I was like, what the fuck? Like I just didn't expect it. And so it's good to see.
Mhm.
Speaking of things that are good to see, ASU men's hockey goes 2-0 in the Desert Hockey Classic. They beat
Yep.
Harvard 5-2. Then on Saturday night, they beat Nebraska Omaha 2-1 in overtime, get a game-winning goal from Kyle Smolin. It goes down as a tie officially because it's an out-of-conference game that ended in a draw, or that wasn't overtime. So it goes down officially as a tie. That puts ASU at 16, 3, and 5. They are now up to
Number
number
11, right?
11 in the
Yeah.
USCHO ranking. I mean, it's just been, we've been talking about this team all year, and it's just been super impressive how they aren't losing these dumb games. You know, they aren't losing to schools that they shouldn't lose to. And you, excuse me, you win 2 tournaments in a row, or you at least go 2-0 in 2 tournaments in a row. It's just they're keeping on the same path to get into the NCAA tournament, you know, and that's really good to see because a lot of these teams you have, I mean, they have four games upcoming against Alaska Fairbanks. They have Long Island University, Alaska Anchorage, Lindenwood. Like these aren't all like great teams, you know, and so for the rest of the year, ASU is going to kind of have to fatten up against like the, you know, lower tier teams that they play, but keep on winning. You know, I mean, only 3 actual losses this whole year, and you've played like 24 games. Yeah, 24 games. So only 3
Against great
times you've left the
competition too,
ice
man.
with a
Yeah.
legitimate loss.
Yeah, man. Against great competition. And once you go down the line and look at a lot of their ties, it's like shootout win, shootout win,
Yep.
shootout win, right? Shootout win against Cornell. Um, let's see, you can keep going down the well, I guess we're up to the Cornell game coming up on Friday. But yeah, winning the Desert Hockey Classic is awesome, and beating some. I mean, Nebraska Omaha, that one was a test. So
Yeah,
uh,
totally.
a lot of, and you know, we'll see what happens as we get closer to the tournament. They also have that trip where they go. They're at Tempe for a while. They're playing at Tempe until February 10th is their last game in Tempe. And then they go Fairbanks, Alaska, back to Tempe, and then Anchorage, Alaska to end the season. So that's
Woo!
brutal travel right there.
That's at least that's like the end of their traveling though. Like at least you have a bunch of games in a row at home. But
Right.
yeah, that's why they're going to be in a conference next year. You know, like you
Yeah.
can't just going up to Alaska all the time in the middle of the winter. Not fun. So it's already cold enough in Arizona right now. For Pete's sake.
Exactly. You said it, Mark.
Yeah. I have to put on a freaking sweatshirt when I go outside. What is this? What
I
is
know.
this? All right. Oh, I did one thing I forgot to mention in the transfer portal buzz is that Jacob Conover recently entered the portal. I mean, everything that's we've heard about Jacob Conover is that he's a great guy, nice guy, but just if he wants to play, he needs to go to the portal.
Right.
So
Yeah,
wish him
definitely.
well, and I'm sure he'll find somewhere to play. Like he's got like the tools, you know. So
He'll
um,
find a spot.
yeah, exactly. And then I was gonna try to mention ASU women's basketball, but I looked up where they are. They're 0-3 in the Pac-12, and come on, 8-7 overall. They've pretty much lost all their big games, so hopefully they can find something later in the season. But not looking good for them right now. So yeah, but anything you want to add before you wrap this one up? This is a longer episode, but hey, had
Not
to
really, man.
wrap up a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot, so I'm good.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for listening, everyone. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Please rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, go Devils, baby.